All right, so tonight's program should be really cool and interesting. It's How to Use Your Voice for Birds, New Mexico Advocacy, featuring our very own Judy Calman, our New Mexico Policy Director for Audubon Southwest. Judy is the director for our New Mexico program, since we have such a unique policy landscape in our state. For the first 10 years of her career, she worked as the attorney for the New Mexico Wilderness Alliance, where she helped protect New Mexico's public lands by opposing damaging projects in sensitive areas, lobbying the state legislature, working with agencies to improve project proposals, nominating special places for federal administrative designations, and through litigation when absolutely necessary. Judy joined Audubon in December 2019, so she got a couple of months of in-person work with us before we all went to teleworking. And she's really focused on policy change at the state level for water, renewable energy, wildlife, and lands. Judy holds a JD from UNM, as well as a master's environmental policy from the Vermont Law School. And so she's got a lot of different stories and information to share. And so I'm really excited to have you all hear what she has to share about her time at the Roundhouse and working on policy, and pick her brain about what it's like to work with legislators. So Judy, go ahead and take it away.
Always exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you, Katie, and hi, everybody. Thanks for joining on an evening. I know that's not always easy for people to do, so I appreciate it. I'm gonna screen share so that people can see my presentation, and hopefully everything will work correctly is the goal. Is it working correctly?
Yes.
Yay, okay. And is my audio better, Katie?
Yeah, I can hear you a lot better.
I'll just lean into the computer. Sorry, you all have to like look up my nose. So again, thanks everybody for coming. I'm Judy. I think you can put questions in the chat or maybe even just say them at the end. We have such a small group that I think we can. So I'm going to focus this presentation mostly on advocating at New Mexico's state legislature. I'm happy to also talk about federal issues if people have them later and I know the answer to them, which isn't always the case, but if I do, I'm happy to talk about them later. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is I've given this webinar a couple of times, so part of it is a repeat of just kind of how the legislature works and why New Mexico's legislative sessions are weird and interesting and unique. But then I'm also going to talk about the legislation that we worked on this past session, this past January and February and March. And then I'm also going to talk about the legislation that we're going to be working on in the next year or two for future sessions. So that's kind of the outline. My email address is on this front screen if anybody wants it. I'm sure Katie will also share it later, so there's lots of ways to get that. So I just kind of wanted to do an overview of New Mexico's legislature because it's in some ways pretty normal compared to other states, and in other ways it's really weird compared to other states. So the way that it's normal is that we basically in New Mexico have a state level version of the federal system. So what I mean by that is we have an executive branch and a legislative branch and a judicial branch, and that's the same as the presidency and Congress and the Supreme Court and federal courts. And they all kind of function the same at the state level and the federal level. And so our legislature is pretty much like our Congress. We have a House and a Senate. The numbers vary depending on what state you're in. Some legislatures have like hundreds of members in their House and 10 members in their Senate. It varies in every state. We have 70 members in our House and 42 members in our Senate. So it's more evenly split than in a lot of places. Democrats have a strong majority in both our chambers, and that has been the case for about 40 years, with the exception of a 2-year period about 10 years ago when Republicans took the New Mexico State House. But other than those 2 years, Democrats have held a strong majority in both chambers. So right now, there's a 45 to 25 majority in the House and a 27 to 15 majority in the Senate. I will mention on this slide that the makeup, just because there is a strong Democratic majority in both chambers does not necessarily mean that it has always been a liberal or progressive legislature. In New Mexico, we have historically had very conservative Democrats, especially in the Senate, until recently. And so it has not been the case that environmental legislation has easily gotten passed. This past election in 2020, a lot of the very conservative Democrats in the Senate were primaried by progressive liberal Democrats. And so even though the numbers are currently approximately the same in terms of party split, our legislature since the 2020 election has moved very far to the left, even though we have approximately the same number of Democrats and Republicans. So it's been interesting the last session because it was the first session since that progressive shift. And so it's really the first time that we've seen, the opportunity to pass some really progressive policies here that we haven't had the opportunity to do before. So I'll talk a little bit more about that later when we start talking about bills that we worked on and want to work on. So one of the reasons our legislature is a little unusual is that they're barely in session. And so every other year we have a 30-day legislative session, and every other year we have a 60-day legislative session. In odd years, we have a long session, and in even years, we have a short session. The weird thing is that during short sessions, all they do is budget stuff. And so that's not when they're doing large scale policy changes for things like conservation bills. Those are pretty much things that have to happen in odd years. There are some exceptions. The governor can put things on an agenda for a short session, and then they're allowed to consider it. But a month is not really enough time anyway to pass a comprehensive policy bill. So basically, we only do comprehensive policy bills in odd years just because of the way that works out. They have at our legislature standing and interim committees. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that when I show you how the legislative website works. But standing committees are the ones that happen during the legislative session, and interim committees are the ones that happen during the year. So even though they're only in session a short amount of time, they do meet regularly over the course of the year to talk about upcoming legislation and to hear presentations from agencies and interested parties and NGOs so that they kind of learn about the things that are going to come up during the session. So interim committees is where we are right now in the year. Those meet over the summer and into the fall. Interim committees are made up of senators and House members, so they do it together. So there's like a water and natural resources interim committee that's made up of a subset of the House and Senate combined. So that's a really good opportunity to go talk to your legislators and hear the presentations that they're hearing during the year. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later also. I did put on here that some of you are more powerful than others, and that's because of the pictures on this screen. So the pictures on this screen are the House and Senate leadership. My own Zoom little window is blocking that. Are you guys aren't seeing my Zoom window, right? You're just seeing the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, just checking because I'm putting it in front of something else. Thanks, Katie. So up here on the upper left is Peter Wirth. He's the Senate Majority Leader. In the middle over here is Senator George Munoz. He chairs the Senate Finance Committee during the session. This is Representative Patty Lundstrom. She chairs the House Appropriations Committee. This at the bottom left is Senator Mimi Stewart, who's the Senate Pro Tem President. And this is Representative Brian Egoff, who is the Speaker of the House. And I put these 5 people up here because they're really the people who set the agenda for the legislature. And not only do they set the agenda for the legislature, but George Munoz and Patty Lundstrom are in charge of the budget for the state. And those 2 committees are the ones who, not only decide the budget of the agencies, but also decide, expenses for those agencies. So if agencies want to do special projects and they ask for something in the budget, it kind of has to go through these 2 people if it's going to happen. Senator Peter Wirth is a person who decides what's going to come up on the floor of the Senate. So he, if he's not interested in hearing a bill, which does happen sometimes, he might not bring it up for a vote to pass the Senate floor. So he is a person who's really important. Senator Stewart and Representative Egolf are, among other things, in charge of committee assignments. And so they're the people who decide which legislators go on which committees. And so that's a really powerful position to be in too, because, for example, these two people who run the two finance committees and are in charge of the whole budget have quite a lot of power. And these two people are the people who keep them there. And so if you're in, it's unfortunate, but if you're in certain legislative districts and those are your legislators, not just these people, but kind of the chairs of any committee and these people and anyone in leadership, you have the ear of a legislator who has more power than some of the other legislators. And so recognizing kind of like knowing who your legislator is and then recognizing the position that they hold in the legislature can be really valuable. So we'll go through and talk about that a little bit more later too. In terms of COVID, I will say this was a strange session in 2021. Unlike most other states, New Mexico decided to do a completely virtual session for 2021. The legislators were there in person kind of in shifts, and only about a third of them were in the building at any given time. The rest of the time they were also on Zoom, and the public was on Zoom entirely. And so members of the public were not allowed to go into the Roundhouse. It's very different than normal because part of the Roundhouse culture is that it's very publicly accessible. And so we didn't have that option this time. And so everyone was sort of trying to lobby and interact with bills virtually and through chats and through texts. And it was interesting, but weirdly successful. And I think they are going to keep the Zoom meetings indefinitely so that people from other parts of the state are able to interact with the legislature even when it gets back to normal and in person. So that's great. They actually had way more participation overall this session than they have in previous sessions because everybody was able to access it through Zoom. So it's good to know that that option will stay. But it was kind of a weird and unusual session. They just announced their interim committee schedules for the summer, and they are doing those in person. Interim committees meet all over the state. It's a chance for legislators to visit different communities and not just meet in Santa Fe. And it looks like they are going to be doing that as usual. So I'll show you all how to find interim committee schedules here in a minute. So we mentioned some of this already. New Mexico is also unique because our legislature is unpaid. They're the only elected officials in New Mexico who we do not give a salary to, which is a little insane. We pay state city councilors and county commissioners and state elected officials, but for some reason our Constitution says that our legislature should be a citizen legislature. And so that's part of why we have such short legislative sessions. And it means that most of our legislators have regular jobs on top of being legislators, which is really interesting, except for the ones that are retired, which is plenty of them. But we have a really wide variety of legislators here. So some of them are realtors, a lot of them are teachers, a lot of them are lawyers, and they all kind of balance their regular work with their legislative work. And so they're volunteers and they're normal people. It also means that they do not have staff. They have staff members during the actual session, but during the year they don't. And so they're responsible for their own email and their own constituent communication and their own research into bills. And so it means that they get pretty dependent on advocates to give them information that they need because they just don't have time or staff to do it all themselves. There's about 2,000 bills per long legislative session that get introduced. And so they're going through that, as best they can, but they can't possibly be experts on everything. And so it's a good place for people like us to be in because they really need us for information and help. And hopefully they're getting help from good people and not bad people. It does also offer really complete accessibility. The Roundhouse is also a place where, the public can just go in. This picture is of people I know who were advocating. I think they were advocating for gun control, but they're here on the Senate floor talking to Senator Cervantes about it. And that is part of how our legislature works, which is really unique and unlike any other state that I know of, where here people can just walk onto the Senate floor and talk to their senators. And so it's awesome, and it makes them really accessible. We don't have a lot of environmental laws in New Mexico at the state level, which is interesting. I don't know why that is. We certainly have some, but we don't have a ton. So there's definitely gaps in our environmental policy here, which, in some cases need to be filled and in some cases probably don't. But that also is different than other states. We just haven't regulated everything here. And so I just want to encourage people, if you don't know your legislator already, to try to get to know them and tell them what you care about. I think, it's been my experience that regardless of party and regardless of whether you are the same party as your legislator, they still want to hear from their constituents about what they care about. And the vast majority of them are nice and friendly and want to know what you think, especially if you're in their district. So I would encourage you to do that. So I don't know if people remember the Schoolhouse Rock video that this cartoon is from, but I included a link to it at the end of the presentation if people want to watch it, because it's my favorite one. But it's all about how a bill becomes a law. We don't have to go through this whole thing, but there are a lot of steps for a bill to become a law. And lobbying and advocacy occurs at every single one of those steps. And so this is sort of in order. I bolded this lots of work in advance one because that's kind of where we are now, since we just finished a legislative session. We're getting ready for the next 2 legislative sessions. We kind of all think in terms of 2 sessions at once because we think of a short session and a long session. And there are things we can only think about for a long session. And so we all sort of make 2-year plans for our policy. And so we just finished a long session and now we're in the lots of work in advance for the next long session phase. And so this is the time where we're thinking about what policy we want to do over the next 2 years and doing that groundwork in advance to kind of make that happen, which definitely starts now. These other bullet points are sort of just what happens during the session. And if people have questions about that later, we can. I'm not going to go through all of it because you can read. So I'm going to stop my PowerPoint presentation for a moment, and I'm going to share the screen instead with the New Mexico Legislature website. Everything is up on the website, but I think it's helpful to have somebody show you where things are because it's a little, it's mostly intuitive, but not completely intuitive. And so let me share that and go through it really quickly. Can you guys see the legislature website?
Yes, we can.
Thanks, Katie. So the legislature has a website. It's nmlegis.gov, which you can see up here. I included it at the end of the presentation too, so I don't know if we're going to post that somewhere. But I just want to show you where a couple things are because it's helpful. This is just kind of their homepage. It has basic dates and things like that and announcements. Over here on the top left, you can click the Legislators tab, and you can actually click this Find My Legislator button. And if you want to, you can search by your address here and here to get your House and Senate member. So that is a really easy way to find out who your legislator is. You can also see a whole list of House members just by going to the House button page. And if you click any of them, it will have their contact information. It will also have legislation that legislator sponsored. You can click different sessions to find bills that they sponsored at different times. You can see what committees that person is on, both during the session, at the standing committee, and during the interim. So it's really, that part's really easy to kind of figure out who people are and what they do for the legislature. Over here, the legislation button, this is helpful, more helpful during the session, I think, because you can find bills going on at that moment. But I will note that if you're looking for a specific bill, you can find, if you know the bill number, you can find it this way by clicking the session you want, whether it's a House or Senate bill, whether it's a bill or memorial, and then filling out the number. So if you're searching for one, I'll find one. We'll just find one that we're going to talk about. You can find a bill and it will take you straight to that bill. You'll see the way it was introduced, what amendments got introduced during the session, the final version of the passed bill, and the current location means what happened to that bill. So it'll either say, if the session's over, it will say it was chaptered or it died. But during the session, if it was still ongoing, it would tell you what committees it was going to next. Up here, the committees page takes you to every single legislative committee that there is. So these two are the standing committees. These are the Senate standing committees for during the session. These are the House standing committees for during the session. And these are the interim committees. And so if you want to see what an interim committee is doing for the session, you can click it. This is the Water and Natural Resources Committee. They do have a meeting on June 15th, but they don't have an agenda posted yet. But it will also show you all the members of that committee. And so you can easily see, who's on it and explore that. The What's Happening tab tells you what's going on at any given time. And so right now you can see that there are agendas posted for these 3 interim committees that are upcoming. This one is the Legislative Finance Committee. It's going to be in Rio Doso. This one's going to be at the state capitol. This one's going to be on video conference. So it'll tell you how to access any upcoming committees. This page during a regular session will also show standing committee hearings. So it'll tell you agendas for kind of everything that's going on right now. It also has tabs for the dates of the sessions, for the interim committee. They have a calendar, things like that. So it's good in terms of figuring out what's going on like in the next month, whatever that is. And then the last tab I was going to show people is just this webcast tab. So there isn't anything playing right now, but everything having to do with the legislature is recorded and filmed in real time. And so you can watch any committee hearing, any floor session, any interim committee, you can always watch it through this webcast. And so you can, if there's something playing right now, like if you went to it in real time, if there was a committee happening right this minute, it would show up here under the now playing. But you can also go to recordings to see any past meeting, and it goes back like 10 years. And so you can find out, if you know what committee you missed that you want to see, you can find it. It's also true with the House Chamber, House Judiciary, kind of anything. You can search by date with the calendar if you know that you wanted to see something from one of the opening days of the session. You could go to January 22 and find the things that happened that day. So it's a really easy way to watch what's happening right now and also watch past things that you want to see. So that was all I was going to show people. I just think it's kind of helpful to walk through it. I'm happy to do it again at the end if people want to go back to it. Hold on one second. Now I have to go back to my PowerPoint. There we go. How am I doing on time? Doing okay. Except I can't get the thing to move. There we go. So when you care about a bill during the session, the best thing to do is read it if you can. It's not always possible. I said if you can, not because I think people are illiterate, but because sometimes bills are hundreds of pages long and they're confusing and technical. And so if it's not readable, which it definitely sometimes isn't, you can often find fact sheets about them or ask an advocate that's working on that bill to explain it to you, which I have to do all the time. Sometimes bills are 3 to 10 pages and they're readable yourself and they're straightforward. So read it if you can. Contact your own legislator first if you have an opinion about it. You can go through the legislative website to see when it's in committee. You can show up to that committee in person or virtually. Oh, I didn't change the slide to include in person or virtually, but we're back to in person sometimes. And reach out to organizations who are probably working on the bill and they can help you. If you care about an issue during the year, or you just want to talk to your legislator about an issue that is on your mind that the legislature works on, you should still talk to your legislator first. It's always best to establish a relationship with your own legislator if you can. If you can't, you can't. I mean, sometimes that's impossible too, but if you can, it's good to do that. Still talk to groups working on the issue, attend relevant interim committees if you can. That's a great way to get to know a lot of legislators at once. Members of the public don't generally come in droves to interim committees, but lots of legislators are in a place at the same time for days at a time. So it's a great way to talk to a lot of legislators at once when they're not during the craziness of the session. So it's a really, really good place to go if you want to advocate for something, if it's not an emergency. You can help work on getting a bill drafted for the next session, and you can talk to other legislators besides your own. There are also, of course, other ways to advocate besides actually talking to legislators and going to the Roundhouse. And so Katie had talked about action alerts. We send out a bunch of those during the session, especially if there's a specific bill that we're working on that we want members to contact their legislators about. We'll send out an alert and that legislator's contact information. Also, we post things like that on our social media stuff. And we do tend to try to get into the media sometimes if it's a really pressing issue. So there's other ways to do it. So I just wanted to give kind of a quick overview of some of the bills that we worked on in 2021. This is not all the bills we took a position on, but it's what I think the most interesting ones were and the ones we were most involved in. So they're the ones I'll give a quick overview of. HB 51 was the Environmental Database Act. That was actually the bill that I just pulled up on the website a minute ago to show you kind of what it looks like when you pull up a bill. But we wrote that bill, and basically it's pretty simple. Right now, all of our agencies kind of operate in these silos and they don't talk to each other about their data. And so if you want to know what's going on in a specific area of New Mexico and you want to know what's permitted there and what's critical habitat there or whatever, you would kind of have to look at a million different agency websites and try to piece it together yourself because there's no centralized location for that information. So all this bill does is create a centralized website that houses our basic environmental data in one place on a map, so that you'll be able to zoom in on an area of the state and see right away, like, oh, there's 5 oil and gas wells in the area I care about, and there's critical habitat for this frog, and there's whatever. I mean, we put a million layers on it. So it'll be a really good tool to kind of make it easier to see what's happening. But hopefully agencies will use it to kind of see the possible implications of their decisions while they're making it. And so they'll know right away, like, oh, shoot, we shouldn't permit that there because there's already these 5 other things, or there's already this sensitive area there or whatever. And so hopefully it'll be something that also causes better decisions to happen on the ground. So that was exciting. That passed the legislature. It got signed by the governor. So that tool is being built right now. We're not the first state that will have a tool like that, but we need one. So it's good. We worked on SB 103. That was an attempt to severely restrict the use of neonicotinoid pesticides in the state. It did have some exceptions, so it wasn't an outright ban. I shouldn't have said the word ban on the slide, but that pesticide is harmful to birds and water. And so unfortunately, that bill did not pass. It got pretty far. It got about halfway through the legislature, but it ended up dying on the Senate floor. So that might be one that comes back. HB 57 was prescribed burning. It just expanded the use of prescribed burns on private land in New Mexico. It gave private landowners kind of a certification process to go through to use that more. HB 9 was a climate solutions bill that would have helped kind of implement the Energy Transition Act a little better. That was the bill from a couple years ago that the governor signed, requiring New Mexico to be carbon neutral by 2045. So this bill sort of built on that by getting agencies together to talk about how to actually make that happen better. That didn't pass either. So that's another thing that might come up in 2022 or 3. SB 12 was kind of an omnibus bill about the Game and Fish Department. That's something we've all been talking about for a long time. The Game and Fish Department gets all of its funding through hunting and fishing licenses and through federal funds that are tied to gun sales. And they don't really have specific non-game funding is what we call it. So funding for non-game species. So they tend to use all the money that they have for game-related projects, like things that benefit elk and deer. And they don't spend as much time or money on things like species of concern. And so that bill kind of restructured some things inside the department to allow them to focus more on non-game species and also got them some non-game funding. That did not pass either. I'm sure it will also come back up in future years. HB 200, people probably heard about. This was the Gila protection bill. So it was a little bit of a wonky bill because it was kind of technical and strange sounding, but you know, there have been local entities for a long time that have wanted to divert the Gila River, and we got a bunch of money through a federal settlement to put towards water projects in Southwest New Mexico, and the local entity in charge of spending that money wanted to dam and divert the Gila River. And so this bill took spending authority away from that unfriendly entity and gave it to a state entity who does not favor diversion. And so it was kind of a technical fix, but it did ensure, I think, that any attempt to divert the Gila River is pretty much over because they have no means to do it anymore. So that was great. SM1 was a Senate memorial, which means it's not a bill per se, it's more of a statement of the legislature, but it asked our schools to focus on outdoor recreation, and Katie worked on that a little bit, so she might have more to say about it, but it's great and it focuses on outdoor classrooms, which is very needed. And this is just kind of an outline for where we're going for the next 2 to 3 years. I think some of those bills that didn't pass this time will come back up. So those will probably recur. We're really looking at doing some pretty big water policy changes. The ones that are listed here are just a few ideas, but we want to make sure that you know, we're becoming more resilient to climate change and figuring out long-term drought, that we're still leaving water in rivers, and that we're funding water programs adequately, which we're not currently. So we're looking at ways to do that both in the short session coming up, but also in the 2023 long session. Conservation funding is a big deal these days. There's a large coalition of conservation groups working on that. New Mexico is one of the few states that doesn't have dedicated conservation funding. And so what that means is, like, all of our restoration projects that we do as a state either have to be funded through regular agency budgets or they have to get specific grants or allocations for them. We don't have like a dedicated regular source of revenue going to conservation. And so other states do have that. So like Missouri, for example, has a 1/8 of 1% gross receipts tax that just goes to their game and fish department, and it funds restoration projects, and it gets them like $65 million a year or something crazy. It's something like that. But we don't have anything like that where we just have a normal revenue stream going to those projects. And so it means we have a lot of restoration work in the state that just has no way of getting funded. And so how we do that is kind of up in the air. We're getting reports, looking at different options, talking to legislators. RAWA at the federal level is another option for getting some of that done. That's the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, but it would still require some state money to be put in if we were going to get funding through that federal act. And we don't have the state money because we don't have conservation funding. So it wouldn't entirely fix the problem, but we're kind of all talking as a big conservation group about how to address that problem because it affects sort of everybody's priorities. I'm really interested in agency planning. Part of the reason that I wanted to do the Database Act this year is because it's important to me that agencies make like informed decisions. And so talking to state agencies and figuring out ways for agencies to have more information, make that information public, and do permitting and planning in a more organized and informed way is important to me. I don't know if that's a legislative fix necessarily, but it might be. And then renewable energy siting is another big project we're working on. You know, as we transition to renewables, we want to make sure that those happen kind of in the right way and in the right places. And so we want to support large renewable energy projects, but we want to make sure that they're not damaging birds and water in the process. And so figuring out kind of permitting standards for some of those things is something we're interested in doing. And this is just my last slide with some information on it. So you'll see my email address is here again. Some of the links that we went through are here again. There are ways to sign up for things. And of course, the Schoolhouse Rock video if you want to go listen to the song. So I think that's all I have. And I'm happy to answer questions or have a discussion or whatever people want to do.
Thanks so much, Judy. That was great. But yeah, so I think since we're such a small group, if you're down for it, I think we can just let people unmute or raise their hand, or if you feel more comfortable putting your question in the chat, go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna really quick put my screen back up really fast. And just do one last plug before we jump into questions and answers about our next webinar in 2 weeks about birds and beer and water conservation. Feel free to join us for that. And just one last plug to, feel free to sign up for our newsletter. Again, a lot of those links that I put in the chat while Judy was talking, we send them out in our newsletter that goes out every other month. So we don't clog up your inboxes too much. We try to be efficient with our communications. So I'm gonna go check the chat. Doesn't look like anyone's put anything in there, but if anybody has a question for Judy, feel free to either raise your hand.
People don't have questions, that is also fine.
Yeah.
Maybe I was super clear.
Oh,
somebody's there.
Yeah, Rebecca says she has a question. Let me see.
Okay, yeah, I just got unmuted.
There you go.
Yeah, can you, I know who my legislators are, but I've never tried to lobby somebody, and I'm not sure what I would, how I would go about it other than to say, hey, I'm interested in this bill. My name is this, and I'm one of your constituents. Can you kind of go through, I mean, they know who you are and they know what you stand for because you've talked to them before, I assume, but as a new person, what exactly would I do?
Well, it's a really good question. I mean, I would email them first if you feel more comfortable doing that, or call them. A lot of them, I will say, not all of them, but a lot of them actually have their cell phone numbers listed on that website. And they also often have their personal email addresses, but they all also have official email addresses. So there are like various some of the phone numbers on there are their capital office phones. So they don't always have personal phone numbers listed. And if you call their capital office phone not during the session, they won't return your call because they're not at the Capitol except during the session. So I guess you would have to look at your legislators' little page to see what the best way to contact them might be. I would say if they only have a Capitol phone listed, try their email. And if they have a personal phone listed, you could try that and or email. But I would just reach out and say, like just what you just said, like, hey, this is who I am. I'm your constituent and I'm interested in getting more involved. And I want to tell you the things I care about. And I would, you could list some of them in an email and see if they respond. But I think, especially with their own constituents, they're pretty open a lot of the time, at least most of them, to going to coffee with their constituents if you want to do it that way, or just have an email exchange with them. And I think it's okay to just reach out to them and start establishing a relationship so that when you email them about a bill, they know who you are and they know that you're their person in their district. And then they'll be more likely to email you back. So I would just kind of start building a relationship that way, the way you would try to build a relationship with any new friend. And I think most of the time, there are some exceptions. I don't know where you live, but like there are some legislators that are distinctly unfriendly, but they're the minority. Like the vast majority of them are great and they want to talk to you. So I don't know if that helps, but hopefully it does.
Yeah, that helps. And I'm in Santa Fe, so I expect to have a friend.
Oh, yours are fine.
Yeah, but could you say a little bit more about why the neonicotinoid bill went down?
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. It actually was, I'm sorry. I'm going to sound really partisan, and I don't mean to, like, full disclosure, I'm a Democrat, but I talk to Republicans all the time, and I find a lot of them are good on our issues. There's a Republican senator, Steve Neville, who sponsors our bills all the time. So I don't mean to sound partisan by saying this, but unfortunately, it was killed by Democrats, which is unusual in this sort of bill. And it got killed because farming and ranching got upset about it. And I think the rural Democrats thought that it would hurt rural agricultural businesses to ban that more than it actually would have. And so a lot of not nice things were said on the Senate floor. And there were exceptions for a lot of ways that neonicotinoids could still be used. And so I think a lot of their concerns were really unfounded, but a different lobby group was louder than we were, I guess. And so that's why it failed. And it failed on the Senate floor. So it got through all its Senate committees and then died on the floor. I think it will come back though.
Because it was so successful previously, you think it has a good chance of getting all the way
No,
through
because
again?
I mean, things just take a long time, because sessions are so short. It's not unusual for bills to have to be introduced like 3 or 4 times before they get through. I always use Gail Chasey's death penalty bill as an example because she introduced a bill to get rid of the death penalty in New Mexico for 10 years straight before it passed. And she did it every year, and every year it got a little bit more support, and she just never gave up until it passed and we abolished the death penalty here. And that's not unusual when you think about how our sessions work. If you're trying to do any kind of controversial bill, I'm not saying neonicotinoid bans are necessarily that controversial because I didn't think it was. It certainly was not as controversial as the death penalty. I'll just say that. But if you're trying to do bills like that in a 30-day session or a 60-day session, it's just hard to get something. The whole process is so long with going through committees in each chamber and then having to pass each chamber's floor that there just isn't a lot of time even for non-controversial bills. And so for some things that have some argument about them, sometimes it just takes a couple years to kind of get all those arguments out and addressed before legislators feel comfortable. And so, you know, it might just take a couple times, which is fine. That's why I still have a job.
And it sounds like that's what makes, like, even now, we're not really in like political heyday season in New Mexico, but like
Right.
this time of year is actually very, very important, even though it's quiet, because this is when you build the relationships and like do that information.
And
share.
seriously, I can't stress enough how cool it is to go to interim committees. I know that sounds like the dorkiest thing anybody's ever said, but it's totally true. Like if you go to like the Water and Natural Resources Interim Committee, which is spending, you know, 2 days in Silver City, which I'm sure they will at some point during this year, you know, it's 25 legislators in Silver City for 2 days talking about bills that might come up. But that means they're staying there, they're eating at restaurants, they're hanging out in that tiny little downtown area. Like you can go to those meetings and just talk to them while they're getting coffee or corner them in the bathroom or whatever you need to do. And it's like, it's great. And it's like informal and everybody's wearing t-shirts, and it's a really good moment during the summer to like build those relationships. So sometimes I go to interim committees even if I am not interested in the presentations, just because legislators I know I need to talk to about something in the future are going to be there. So I know that's a lot for people to do, but if there's one happening in a place you want to go to, maybe it's worth timing your trip around stopping by one of those for a day.
Yeah, or if they happen to be coming to your community.
Right, or if they're coming to your city.
There. Yeah.
Yes, I just saw.
Yeah, Anya's asking, can you say again how to find that information about where those interim committees
for
meet?
sure. And it's probably easier if people don't mind if I can can I share my screen?
Yep.
Again?
Yep, and I can put the chat back in the link in the chat again.
Hang on a second. Hold on. Sorry, I messed this up. Give me a moment. Sorry. Okay, here we go. So can you see that?
Yep.
So there's a couple different ways to find interim committees. So one is if you go to the legislative website, go to this What's Happening tab, and it'll tell you like the immediate upcoming interim committees. So this is like the ones that are in the next couple of weeks you can see. But you can also go to this interim committee calendar, and it will tell you there's eight. I didn't show you guys this screen, but I will now. There's a page for each month of the interim. And I know these are all abbreviations, but so like LFC is Legislative Finance Committee. So you'd have to sort of figure out what those are, but it will tell you like Legislative Finance Committee is meeting in Las Cruces and TRC these days. So you kind of know the general schedule. So like, here's why I know, like here on the 15th, WNRC is Water and Natural Resources Committee. So they are meeting by video conference at 1 p.m. on the 15th. That'll be their organizing meeting. When it gets a little closer to that date, that agenda will appear here on this What's Happening page. They don't always post the agendas super far in advance, but they like at least within a week, they will. So you can look at the calendar and kind of know what's coming. As things get closer and clearer, they will update this calendar to show where other committees are going around the state. So not all of them say where they're happening. Like a lot of these are video conference, but like once you get a little further in the summer, like here's Water and Natural Resources is meeting the 12th and 13th of July, but it doesn't say where. They'll update that when it gets a little closer to say what city they're going to. And when that gets a little closer, they'll post an agenda here. But the other way to do it is just if you go to this committee page, if you're interested in a specific committee, you can just go, all the interim committees are over here. You can just go to a specific committee you're interested in every once in a while. So like they have a meeting on May 24th and they also post the agenda here. And you can look at the agenda, it'll say what they're gonna do. They're just making a work plan. Sometimes they have links in their agenda and it'll take you to handouts they're using for a presentation or something like that. And also on that actual actual Indian Affairs Committee or whatever committee website you're on, it'll show you that's where it shows you the members of that committee. And if you're a member of the committee, like it says over here, you're a voting member. And if you're an advisory member, you're a non-voting member. That's true with regular committees too. So hopefully that helps. I know it's like a big website and it's a little hard to navigate, but if you just kind of start using it, you'll figure out where things are.
Yeah,
But I'm
and
always happy to tell people too, if people have trouble.
yeah, and probably next week I'll send out a follow-up email to all the registrants. So I'll include that link to the New Mexico legislature website and also a recording of this. So if you want to watch Judy like drive through that website again, you can do that at your own leisure.
You can also always email me and I'm happy to tell
And I
people
will
how to
send
do
out
it.
Judy's email as well.
Yeah, it's fine.
I saw that Bridget had a question. So we are Audubon Southwest, so we merged with our Arizona office for a regional office last summer. And we do now cover the Arizona policy, but we have a separate policy team since Arizona is a whole, I mean, they are a whole other state, but they're a whole other state. So, but
yeah, Haley Paul is the person for Arizona, and she does some of these webinars too. But I don't know anything about the Arizona legislature.
Yeah, and so
that's from what she's told me. I do also see your question, Bridget, that you asked who is building the HB 51 tool, and UNM is going to be in charge of building it and housing it because they already run some databases for state agencies, and then it requires uploading information from Department of Health, the Energy, Minerals, and Natural Resources Department, the Environment Department, the Land Office, Game and Fish, and a couple others that I can't think of off the top of my head. So, but it'll be housed through UNM's. They have a department through their biology department called Conservation Information something. I don't know. I can't remember. It's ridiculous. I wrote the bill, but I can't remember what the thing is called. But it's the UNM biology department basically that runs kind of similar conservation databases. So.
Yeah, and like Judy literally wrote that bill, which is really exciting and really cool.
Fun. First time I've ever written a bill that got all the way signed.
Yeah.
I've written bills that have definitely not passed, but
yeah.
None that have passed until now. So.
Awesome. Well, it looks like I don't see any more outstanding questions in the chat. So thanks everybody so much for joining us this evening. I hope you learned some new things and are inspired to get involved. You know, like I said, sign up for our newsletter, and that's a great way to learn more about what Judy's working on, and even in Arizona now, what Haley's working on, or if we need to activate our members in a certain community, like what Judy was saying, that's a great way for us to kind of have you on deck and say like, now go call your legislator now. So it's a really great way to get involved. And, also feel free to join us for our other events coming up in a few weeks. And then we're going to have another native plant webinar in June, all about summer harvest for birds and people, which will be really cool. So thank you so much for everyone for joining us. I hope you have a great evening and take care.
Thanks, everybody.